Hi, and welcome to Pursuit of Tomorrow. Howard Thurman said, don't ask what the world needs, ask what makes you come alive and go do it. Because what the world needs is people who have come alive. Now, in the spirit of that, I've decided to invite anyone and everyone onto this platform here to help discuss the idea and how we can actively pursue tomorrow as opposed to just kind of passively receiving it. Now, before we get started, I just want to say any support to the channel would mean so much to me. So like, comment and subscribe, and without any more to say, let's get right into the episode. Okay, so today we are here with Beverley.
Have you been recording all this time?
I have indeed.
I'm gonna kill you! Oh my gosh, Rael, come on!
Thank you for being here, Beverley. Oh, no, it's not a good one. So, I know I briefed you a little bit about. I briefed you a little bit about what Pursuit of Tomorrow is, but before we get into all of that, I'm going to take a quick introspective look into yesterday. So I asked you to bring 2 or 3 artifacts that you think bring about positive memories for you, and yeah, so what have you brought along?
So, my first one, which I can't show you the details obviously,
Right.
the first one is my daughter's birth certificate.
Okay.
It's weird because when you mentioned it, I thought, oh, where's Portia's birth certificate? And I went to get it. And she she thinks I'm obsessed with her, right? So she thinks that every time, like someone says, oh, they've had a baby, I go, oh, how much did they weigh? Portia weighed 12 and a half, do you know what I mean? And she goes, oh, Mummy, you have to stop doing that. And then I said something to her the other day, it was at my brother's, and I said, someone said something about something that happened. So I was like, oh yeah, I can't remember that. Actually, Portia was born in 1990, and I started going on. And Portia actually went, my mum has no frame of reference past the day I was born. And it's not that I have no frame of reference, but that was the most important time for me. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So the day that she was born was it. So everything that happened prior to that held in significance, and therefore I struggled to work out what happened. Do you know what I mean? So she thinks it's a bit weird. But
I didn't think that's very interesting.
However, I don't think I was a very good mum to begin with. Do you know what I mean? Because
Not personally.
I had all these nieces and nephews that, I took part in their growing up because my mum's children were the eldest in that generation. So I've watched all of them, all 26 of them being born after me and my brothers and sisters. So, babysat all of them, changed nappies and stuff, never. But when it came to being a mum, I was like, okay, this child ain't going back. You know what I mean? She's staying with me. So I found myself looking at other people who were parents to try and work out whether I was doing the right thing. And so, I remember one point my aunt put in her kids, one of my cousins who was just a couple of months older than Portia, and she put him in swimming. So I thought, I need to put Portia in swimming.
Right.
And the fact that I couldn't swim anyway, and I still can't swim, it's like, I needed to do that. It's the one thing I always knew I was going to combat, but I didn't know how early to do it. So then I watched my aunt, and my cousin was going to swim, so I thought that was time for her to go swimming. And then, I heard people talking about going to the library with their children. It's time to go to the library with my child. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
So there was a time when I was like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? Honestly, what am I doing? I have no clue. And then the child called me mum. I was like, this person is talking to someone else. You know what I mean? It's like, nah, I don't know what's going on here, but yeah. It was weird. It was weird. And even though she's 30 now, I still struggle to get past that moment. So, because it was significant in a lot of ways, and I think when you reflect on how you got there as well, like the relationships you had that you formulated with either friends or her dad, it's like, I didn't know I would get there at that point.
Yeah.
It was all a shock to me.
Okay.
I won't say she was planned, but she wasn't a surprise to us necessarily. We talked about having children, just didn't expect her to come so soon.
Okay.
And here she is.
She's going to listen to this as well.
Oh Lord. She's going to say, Mum, I don't know why you always talk about me. Think about yourself.
Well, that's the second half of this interview, trust me.
Oh,
But no, I also asked you to think of maybe a song or a film that's personal meaning to you. Unless you have more artifacts to show me.
No, that's fine. Well, yes, but I brought something to tell you what they were, right?
Okay,
My second one was song or a book. But I cheated a bit.
Okay.
I couldn't think. Because there are two books that mean a lot to me. And one of them comes with a soundtrack. So the first one is Toni Morrison's The Bluest Eye.
Okay.
Now, I have read this book 40 times maybe.
Wow.
And whenever I introduce reading to women, in particular black women, this is the first thing I do, and I said, you need to read Toni Morrison's Bluest Eye. And one of my students who left yesterday, as it happens, said to me that Toni Morrison is now her favourite author. Okay. I feel that every black woman who likes to read, or everyone who's interested in the journey of black women actually, needs to read this book, because it's so powerful in terms of the story that it tells about self-love and the way that like in our own community, how we see ourselves in terms of colorism and things like that, and how you know, how as little girls we kind of like this aspect of what beauty is, and we aspire to certain. In this, she's talking about Shirley Temple, and as a child, I remember wanting to be Shirley Temple. Like, I know I didn't want my skin to be white, but I wanted my hair to be in ringlets, and I wanted to be able to tap dance in, you know, and laugh with the black man whose eyes are just popping out of his head and stuff like that. Do you know what I mean? So this is it, you know. And I used to read this probably every other week when I discovered reading. So I didn't discover reading at school. Because when I was at school, it was very white colonial types of work, or books of. I remember reading about Kes, the boy in his kestrel. Not interested in it. Or there was a book called Walkabout, where these kids are walking through the Australian desert and stuff like that. I wasn't interested in any of that. You know, and it was only when I left school. I can't actually remember how I came to reading, but when I left school, somebody gave me a book. So I used to like reading as a child, but not the books that they gave us in school. So I read for school and nothing else. But for fun, I cannot remember for the life of me who gave me this particular book. But it changed my life in terms of how I like reading. And then one of my cousin's husbands gave me a book by Jamaica Kincaid, and I started reading her. So I went from Toni Morrison to Jamaica Kincaid, and then it just spirals. Do you know what I mean? You read one book and then someone tells you another. So yeah, so this is it, and I fondly read it with anybody who wants to start reading. I will read it again and again and again, have discussion about all of them.
Yeah, I'm going to have to borrow it off of you now.
I'm telling you, Toni Morrison's Bluest Eye, I should buy you as a gift. And the other one was Malcolm X, the autobiography of Malcolm X. Now, when you said song or book, I was like, oh, Malcolm X. Because actually, have you listened to the soundtrack?
I haven't, no.
Come on,
Don't look when you say disappointed.
Tell me you've read the book.
I haven't, I've read a book, not that book.
Brother, man.
I'll buy that one off of you as well.
You need to read this book.
Okay.
And in particular, the introduction by Alex Haley is powerful. Okay. It really is powerful, and he talks about his the interviews and stuff with Malcolm X and stuff, and it's I actually can't express how much I love it. And Gary Young, who writes for The Guardian, also does a foreword in here as well. And again, I think I've probably read this book 10, 15 times. There came to a point when I used to read it every January as a part of centering myself in terms of how I felt about myself and what I felt about my journey and how I wanted to move through life. And again, so if I was going to say to anybody about a book they should read, it would be these two for different reasons. And then the soundtrack to this, I mean, I would start singing right now, but I'm actually not a singer. But the songs, it's almost like it takes you so far back, it's unbelievable. And I think what I learned about Malcolm X in this book was some of the things that I didn't know before. So everybody knows the whole, by any means necessary. And actually, when you start to read the book, you uncover that actually it's not just that. It's about all other things that encompass his journey. And what frustrates me about the saying is that everyone thinks that by any means necessary means I need to shoot you, or I need to get my gun out, or I need to fight you. Yeah. And he's not saying that at all. He says whatever the situation dictates that you need to fight with, then it could be your words. And at that point, it could be your words. But the sadness in Malcolm X's story it's really sad. But then, even though he takes you on his journey in terms of how he meets his best friend and how he goes to jail and how he comes to Islam, and even his love for Islam outside of the nation comes through in here in a way that you never learn it in anywhere else. As far as anyone's concerned, Malcolm X, Dr. King, opposing views, but and you read the book and you realise that actually Dr. King and Malcolm X may not have had the exact same view, but they wanted the same end point. And there's a point where he talks about how they learned to understand each other. And I just love it. His journey, when he took his journey to Mecca, it makes me want to read more. And there's another book like Malcolm X Travels, and so I ended up reading that as well. But this book tells me about who I am and what I want to be and where I want to go. I don't discount Dr. King's journey whatsoever. But Dr. King's journey was slightly different, and I like the underdog version, and I've always liked an underdog who comes through and teaches us about who we are. And you could take this up, you could take this out, say it's not Malcolm X, give this book to anybody, exactly the same things are happening today, and exactly the same things he took when he talks about black people needing someone to lead us who understand our own lives, and rather than somebody being selected for us by the media to say that's our representative.
Right.
It's the same journey. I just love it.
Cool.
I do really love it.
It's
Can't really see it now because my eyes are killing me. I need to put my glasses on. But I thought I brought them, but I was, redoing the excerpt.
That would have been a good artifact to bring you. So you speak about your journey.
Yeah.
Question: if you were to offer some advice to a 12-year-old version of yourself, what do you think it would be?
I've got another artifact for that too. So I've got two things to show you for that. So first of all, I can't remember being 12.
Okay.
I remember childhood as a block.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I can't remember how old I was when these certain things happened. I know that we used to hang out, like with your dad, we used to hang out and go roller skating. I know I used to hang out with other people's dads and go jump in the brook, playing 40-40 till late, hanging out at the top shop and talking rubbish because we thought we knew it all. And, do you know what I mean? But I can't remember the ages that we were now. I'm getting old, man.
Stop it.
I'm like, when I was in my 30s, I thought, if you ask me that, maybe. But it's like, the older I get, I'm just like, do I even remember that far back? But I feel that one of the things I would have said to myself is that you can make an impact. Because I know when I was growing up, I know that our parents always used to say, you can do this, you can do that, you can be who you want to be, and that kind of stuff. And I know that their journeys from the West Indies wasn't easy. And I know that them bringing us up in this country wasn't easy. And I know that one of the first generation to go through the schooling system, that it wasn't easy for them to understand what it was for us. So we may have been failed by our parents, but not on purpose.
Yeah.
Because they felt the education system was doing what it should be, and it was on our side, and clearly it wasn't. So I would have told my 12-year-old self, that you can actually make a difference to somebody. And it's weird because yesterday, the year 13s left, and one of them wrote me an A4 page of how grateful she was to me. Wow. And when I tell you, it made me cry. Wow. And I wanted to bring that as one of them, but there was something else. But it made me cry because that whole year group actually was a year group that it was so disruptive because of COVID.
Yeah, of course.
And then I still managed to stay on top of it with them and get really close to them. And so for that reason, that whole year group is going to be one of the most special groups in my life. And I realised yesterday I made a difference.
Yeah.
But that 12-year-old self would be this. So I've got two things to make the point.
Right.
So this is one of the first sweatshirts we ever had for the Miss P Foundation. So on the back it says, look at me trying to look in the mirror to make sure you see everyone sees it. So it says the Miss P Foundation, nurturing visions in the arts. Now, one of the things that I just never thought we'd do is be 12 years down the line and we're still doing the one thing that actually gives me that much joy. So, the whole idea that we set up an organisation in 2009 because Portia needed funding has gone. Actually, what we're doing now is supporting young people in the arts and making dreams come true. So that sweatshirt just reminds me of our first thing. So then my group of friends, joined me in one of Portia's first shows, and she was in Aylesbury in a show called The Magic of Motown, and they got me this T-shirt, and on the front it says Proud Mummy, and on the back it says yes, that's
what they were on the stage. That's cool.
And I think it's full circle. Listen, I wear this with pride every time Portia was on the stage or any time she's doing something, and she said, "Mum, it's about time you retired that." But actually, from the moment we started this in 2009 to this, it says not only, you know, was I able to be a decent mum, but actually it's that I could make a difference to somebody, you know, and I think we're still making differences in terms of what we're doing for Miss P anyway, you know, and almost every conversation I have with people would be, "Oh, what are you doing? Oh, are you doing anything in the arts?" I mean, so it's the second thing that comes out of my mouth oftentimes after good morning, or as in your case, "What are you doing? Come and do something for free." You know what I mean? It's in the gym the other day, a guy said to me, "He works with wood, got a job for you. We need a set building." So yeah, so I think my 12-year-old self would have said, actually, you actually can make a difference. Yeah, I wouldn't, Again, can't remember being 12, but, you know, the block childhood.
No, it's funny you should say that. I remember when you approached me about playing Mufasa in The Lion King.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, man, I came just to play my character. Next thing you know, it was like, "Well, can you take this group there? Can you take that group there? I need the music edited. Pull down. I need to build Pride Rock." Every little step in between is there.
I swear, when some people see me coming, they run the other way.
I know, like, yeah, whenever you've approached me to help out with Miss P, I know it's like, man, I got to slot out some time. It's never just like one little thing.
I know.
I've always been happy to do it, man. I really love
bless you.
What Miss P has been able to do for many people. And plus, that's my favourite role.
Yeah.
I have to say, like,
look, you owned it. Come on. You're forever my sire.
Oh, I loved it. Yeah, no, that whole experience was brilliant. I know, I know it's been like that since the beginning,
Yeah.
So, now that we're talking about the beginning of Miss P, if anything, do you think there's anything that's held you back? You talk about how Miss P was able to propel you forward. Is there anything that kind of was a counter to that?
There is. I mean, and we still face it. Is the fact we don't have our own space. So every year, we need to negotiate with people how much it is, how important it is for us to run Miss P, in order to give people the opportunity to do stuff that we can do it for either free or we do it at reduced cost. And it's just sometimes exhausting. So so we tend to move around a bit, and it just means it's a bit unsettling. So and then I think we lose people sometimes from one venue to another, because it's easy. We used to be in Sanford and we were in Blackwoodleys, and Blackwoodleys is perfect because it had the parking and had the shops across the road, and it was in a safe environment, so that was fine. But now we're at Marston. It's okay, but I mean it costs us a lot of money, and oftentimes the money that we're paying towards hire is what we could be using to get costumes or so yeah. I think that's the thing that wears me out most times, and the fact that I have to work full time, which means I'd love to be able to just to do this full time.
Right, yeah.
And dedicate my life, because at the moment I'm studying, I'm working, and doing Miss P, which means I'm doing script writing and getting people involved and thinking about costumes and stuff like that in between everything else.
Right, yeah.
So it'd be great if I could just concentrate on it, but I know that's not going to happen.
It may do.
Yeah.
Hopefully it's one of those things where even though you feel like you're 12 years in, so later down the line it's still early days for... Yeah,
I'm hoping someone will see it and say, we've got a lot of money, why don't you come and, where would you want to be? I'd like, I we drive past places sometimes, you see plots, I think, we could do that. Or I see buildings that are empty, Miss P. At one point I'd love to see the Miss P Foundation above somebody's door.
That would be cool. That'd be cool.
Yeah. And then I would continue with the educational part as well. So in a day, it offers also education to the community as well as doing musical theatre or any sort of arts, to be fair.
Nice.
It's always been my dream.
Cool.
But
Nice. All right, so I'm going to start moving things towards that pursuit of tomorrow segment now. So there's a Howard Thurman quote: "Don't ask what the world needs. Ask what makes you come alive and go do it. Because what the world needs is people who have come alive." Now you may have actually already answered this, but what makes you come alive?
It's weird because honestly, when you sent me those questions, I think to myself, we should just answer me them at the time. Because now I'm thinking, what does make me come alive?
That's the
But
point.
so much does
let
though.
the question marinate on you.
So much does. So much. I think when I get up in the morning, I think, what am I doing today? And I 100% look forward to going to work.
That's good.
I'm not one of these people that say, oh, I'll go to work because I have to. I 100% love my job, and I love the people that I work with, and I love the students. So that's great. And I'm alive when I do it. I actually could, when you just feel low and whatever, I get to work and I'm the person that I need to be at work because I love what I'm doing in that space. But seeing my daughter on stage is it.
That's cool.
Yeah, and she's recently made a decision that she's not sure that she wants to be on stage anymore. And selfishly, I tried to get her to say, oh, think about it, because that's what does it for me. When I leave Oxford to go to a show, when she was in Motown the musical, I probably was there as much as the cast. And I spoke to people from Oxford to London, random strangers, about the fact that I was going to see my child on the stage. Then when I got there, how many times by myself, talking to person on the left, to the right. By the time the interval came, I had like this circumference of people around me who all knew that was my daughter on the stage, because the word was spread. And I'd literally tap people, that's my daughter there on the stage.
Wow.
She thinks I'm mad, but that's what it is for me. So I know that if she's no longer going to be doing that, and she might be taking a career change, I know that I'll miss that. But then aside from that then, what makes me come alive is when I go to rehearsals.
Okay.
Those kids drive me mad, right? I love being at rehearsals.
Yeah,
And then when the show, come on, I don't even know what I'm doing. They go too quickly.
Yeah.
It happens and it goes, you blink and it's over. All of that work, 3 months of work, you do it once or twice and that's it. And oftentimes before we've even finished the first one, kids are asking me what we're doing next.
Yeah, I wish Lion King could have lasted longer.
Yeah.
I think that was the first time I was like right up at the front with this thing, So it's always been like, little favour here, little favour there.
Yeah.
He was like,
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
when it was Lion King, obviously at the new theatre.
Yeah.
Really
Yeah.
big.
Yeah.
Loads of tickets were sold.
It's almost a shame that it was at that big theatre, because had it been at the Playhouse, then we would have had a matinee and an evening, and we could have done it twice.
Yeah.
And that's what I realised. So the kids this time round, they're lucky because if we sell one show, we then put on a matinee, so they will get to do it twice.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
So obviously you've spoken about how you'd love to have, or Miss P to have its own space, and obviously for it to grow. So from where you are now and with that vision you see, what does your week, day, month, year look like, kind of in pursuit of growing Miss P into doing something bigger?
Every year I ask myself the same thing. I say, this is what I want, but I'm not doing anything about it.
Okay.
And we did apply once to, because obviously it's a charity, but we did apply once through Lloyds Bank. We're having these small business things, and they had these seminars and stuff. So I went to a few of those, and kind of like just read the literature and said what it was. So anyway, I had a few meetings at a number of banks, and it was almost like the banks didn't trust the investment because it was the arts.
Right.
So there's a lot of people need to get involved. So every year I say to anybody who's listening, if anybody wants to fund it, it's hard. It is hard, and a lot of the schools outside of Oxford are established already, or they're an adjunct of the university or something like that. Do you know what I mean? And I just don't have that kind of connection. So, but that my day, if I could, would be sort of pounding the pavement and getting someone to see how great it is the work that we do. And we do not get paid. We don't pay ourselves. Don't even pay ourselves petrol money.
Yeah, strange thing, because obviously I've witnessed firsthand how
Yeah.
not only how large Miss P, but obviously how many lives it touches, and you know, it's run really well.
Yeah,
you
thank
know.
you.
I've always loved how interconnected the family is. You know,
Yeah,
so, you know,
yeah.
It's just it's such a huge support base, and
that is part of it. I mean, that's the fact that, you know, I've got an amazing family and an amazing extended family, and they support it regardless. You know, so either the kids are in it, or you know, if they're not busy or whatever. But aunts and uncles, cousins, brothers, you know, just have to ask them one thing and they're there. You know, so you know, my brother does the website. My nephew does our flyers and publicity and social media. You know, my aunts do the cooking for the events, and you know, my cousin and aunt do all the financing. So Nicola and I will do all the directing and whichever. Nicola's always there on hand to help with sessions and do some additional choreography. Portia will be doing singing this time. You know, so if we had to pay for any of that work, we'd never do anything.
Yeah.
We wouldn't do anything.
Plus, you know, a huge part of Miss P is actually, you know, like you collect as much money as possible, and then like just distribute it right back out into young people now. Obviously, that started with Portia.
Yeah.
And how you know that was the main objective. Like how much money can we raise?
Yeah, exactly.
To get her into the arts and help her fulfill her career.
12 years later, here we are still.
They're doing the same thing. Like, it's just like, do you think that would be the same model in a further 12 years? I
hope that there is an art that I hope in 12 years' time we have our own building with Miss P Foundation written over the top, and there will be two wings, one by which it's profit making, so that we can continue to offer people scholarships and stuff to study full time, and then there is another wing that continues to support young people in the community who can't afford to go off, and probably this will be the experience they have in musical theatre or any sort of arts. So I assume that wing would always exist.
Okay. That's actually interesting, because I think for all of the creative endeavours I've ever been on, I don't think I've done musical theatre outside of Miss P, really.
Yeah. And it's interesting. I think one of the issues we have in musical theatre is that all the stories that involve a multicultural cast are always about our struggles.
Yeah. And
less about our celebrations.
Yeah.
And so when you look at the West End, the only thing at any given time I think was about celebration of people who weren't white was Motown.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I suppose you could call the Lion King a black production, but it comes up as that, but you don't need to be black in order to be in the Lion King. It's not necessarily a black story.
No, I think the thing with the Lion King is, you know, they realise the world that they've built for themselves within the cartoon.
Yeah.
And when it came to translating that on stage, it's like, you know, there's only so far you can go to accurately recreate that in a, not only a live action setting, but also in a theatre setting.
Yeah, exactly.
Outside of that, it's the Lion King isn't like a uniquely African black story.
Exactly. Yeah. So I mean, I did struggle, and we do struggle with what it is that we choose to do. Either we, you know, continue to find pieces that are like. I mean, the kids chose Hairspray, and I thought it fit with what was going on in the world anyway, so I was happy to do that. And it has a lot of really good numbers in it, and we needed something with big numbers so kids could just forget what was going on in a sense and come in and sort of like have a good time, which they seem to be anyway, having a good time at the moment. But you know, other than that, our stories, our struggles, and I don't really want to always focus on the struggle.
Of course not.
You know, so. But yeah, and I don't know what it is about musical theatre. I mean, in particular, black people, you know, that I know, not a lot of us listen to watch the musical theatre. So, I don't know what that is about.
It's interesting because I think, in the same way theatre productions are put on, the way the audience is built, I think it's never been like a big thing, like black people go to musical theatre. But then I remember, you know, the last time I caught you at the theatre, way before COVID.
What were you watching?
I can't remember what it was, but I know it was a black story. It was a black centric story. I can't remember specific. I mean, when the theatre was open, I know I was there like very often, but the stories that definitely grabbed my attention were those ones. And I think the last time I was actually at the theatre was for the Black Ballet.
Oh, Ballet Black.
I mean, I suppose
Was it the Playhouse?
Yeah.
Yeah. Ballet Black.
Ballet Black, yeah, and I think it was one of those. It wasn't like, you know, within the black community, you know, word of mouth is a very strong thing. And it just wasn't. I know it wasn't partially the community the same way. Okay, Black Panther was. Obviously, you don't know huge difference between cinema and theatre. But in terms of how theatre is marketed, I think you know, for some reason it's always been made to feel less accessible.
And I think in Oxford in particular, the Playhouse seems to be a white middle class domain, and it's like, if it's there, it's not for us.
Yeah, right next to the Randolph and all that.
Exactly. It's positioned in that particular place, you're right. But when you go to the new theatre, I think when I was growing up, that's why we went for pantomime.
Yeah.
So I think that maybe it has more of a working class vibe to it, and therefore we're more likely to go to the new theatre. But reality is, you could get the same things, similar things anyway, in the new theatre as you would at the Playhouse. But it seems to be for different parts of the community.
I think that's what people actually do appreciate about Miss P, the inclusivity. And how it's always not only promoted that, but built that.
And I like the Playhouse as much as I like the new theatre, but you're right, you know. I remember doing some community outreach for the Playhouse. And whenever they had something on there they felt they needed more of the community in, by which they meant black people, they would give me a load of tickets, and I literally would walk around and sell tickets. So one time Jeannie Asheray was there, and I probably knew 80% of people in the audience because they were struggling to sell it. So they asked me, so I literally went to Blackbeach, went to Cowley, I just word of mouth, and in the end people were calling me for tickets.
Right, yeah.
You know, so that was great, and that was a great event. But you're right, I just think we need more inclusivity in the theatre.
Yeah, because I think, you know, if the model for putting theatre on was the same, like in the same way Miss P is put on, it's one of those things where everyone always feels invited. You know, like you said, you know, people will happily call you up, find out what's going on. You'll happily hit them up, and there's all that word of mouth and communication. And there's an energy to it. Right. Whereas when something is being put on, like you said, they're very quick to say, "Hey, can you go and promote this?" They wouldn't want to put their own people in place and systems in place that will just make it feel more welcoming.
And do you know what I found recently? That people call, they see something at the Playhouse and they won't go to see it. They call me and ask me if I've seen it.
Right.
So, Bev, have you seen this? Or do you know what this is about? I'm like, if you want to go, just go. I don't know why I need to know about it. But I'm happy to go. I'm happy to go to theatre with anybody to see anything. You know, I love live music, live dance. Oftentimes it's not typically what you expect me to like. You know, so I'm not going to tell you about my guilty pleasures or anything, but it's just like, for me, it's the live aspect of the fact that people have used their skills and stuff like that. So
I'll hold you to that. When theatres are back open, we'll go.
For real. Yeah.
So just to bring it back to the expansion of Miss P and discovering theatre, I suppose, you know. So there's a version of yourself in the future that's it's got Miss P above the door. You know, you've got those two wings. You've got all that. What words of encouragement do you reckon that version of yourself would have for you now?
So in an ideal world, we've got it.
Well, in an ideal world, right? Future version, the same way that, you know, you can look back at a 12-year-old, well, an 8-year-old version of yourself and offer some words of encouragement, offer some advice. You know, if you're how many years in the future, what words of advice do you reckon that person has for you?
Possibly something like, it is possible, and therefore it you know, I suppose it doesn't have to be a dream, it can be a reality. So I think maybe something like that, because in my mind I know that it's true. I know that it's capable. I am capable of doing it. The physical getting up and making it happen is where I'm not the best. So I dream about doing it. So I'd imagine my future self would have said, "There you go. See, it's possible.
Okay.
It's all right. You got this."
got this.
Yeah.
Well, like I said, if the first 12 years of Miss B is anything like the future 12 years of Miss B and the future 24, I know it's gonna.
Oh, but I'm getting old, I don't know how many 12 years you could add onto that.
Listen, you say that, I see all your family, all up in, all up any kind of age, is still dancing, still vibing, so.
But when I got into my 40s, I thought, jumping up and down, I thought, oh, that's good. Took me like a day or so to recover. Now I'm in my 50s, I'm just like, 3 days later on the Wednesday at work, I'm thinking, oh, I feel alright now. From the Saturday, I'm just exhausted.
And you say that, but there's plenty younger members of the families that I'm sure will keep Miss P alive.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the other thing, it's the idea that I do often wonder if the day the Lord decides to take me, whatever, what would happen. So I do consider that actually somebody needs to be in there already with me, and I say, this is what you do. They might delegate better than me, actually, to be fair. I'm not great at delegating. And I say these people do all these things, and when they are doing it, I'm a bit on top of them a bit, But they appreciate it. They're not mad about it. But maybe the next person will delegate a bit more.
No, I know Miss P is going to be around for a very,
I
very
do
long
hope
time.
that. Yeah, it's a family thing. So the next family member or whatever will take over and do. Yeah, but I do. It does gives me so much joy though. And it was only when I was thinking about talking to you and I realised how happy I am when I'm doing it.
That's good.
Yeah. So, even though I am exhausted, So.
Oh, it's long hours, but.
But my whole day tomorrow will be looking at script, sourcing costumes and stuff like that. So, and I don't begrudge losing the day because I don't see it as a loss. I see it as, I just see it as so productive.
Yeah, no, definitely.
So, and then when I can't get to do it, that's when I get frustrated. So when I haven't managed to look at the script in the whole week because I've got other things to do at work, or the fact that I'm still studying, it's like, I'm vexed now. What Thursday come and I haven't done anything with the script, or I haven't done any costume, or I haven't called anybody, or I haven't contacted the theatre. That's when it gets quite frustrating for me. So maybe work might think I've got my priorities straight, but the job gets done and I meet the deadlines and the kids are having a good time.
Oh, that's all anyone can ask, that not only does it get done, but it gets done to a high standard.
Yeah.
People enjoy themselves.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, well, thank you for being part of Pursuit tomorrow. Thank you for being here today.
Oh, you're welcome.
Is there anything you'd like to sign up to the camera with?
Well, first of all...
First of all, there's a list.
It's interesting because I'm like, why me? Why did you choose me though?
Oh, so I'm getting interviewed now. Okay. So, there's a couple of sides to Pursuit tomorrow. First one being, I want to be able to interview anyone and everyone because everyone's got a story, and with every story, there's the what happens next part. But the next chapter, that was the initial name for Pursuit tomorrow.
Okay.
But then there were also just certain individuals who I know had a lot of vision, and so. It's like, the people who have a story, it's like, where do they think that story's going to go?
Yeah.
And people who know where their story's going to go, I just want to explore that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think it's interesting.
Thank you.
It really had me thinking, and I didn't actually get my artifacts out until this morning because apart from the birth certificate, which I knew was going to be the first one, I toyed with so many things that were important to me for the rest.
Right. Yeah.
And honestly, if you asked me for 10 artifacts, I could have found 10.
I know, that's why I wrote 2 to 3.
Yeah, and there's one of the questions when you talk about how, if there's somebody important to you who shaped your life.
Right, yeah.
I avoided that one because there were just so many to choose from.
Yeah.
And it would, first of all, it would have been Portia anyway, because I had her at that particular stage in my life, and I wasn't really focused on doing anything, and I kind of having a conversation with her. I used to go into her school and help her do do circle time and do cake baking and all that kind of stuff. And one day I heard these kids whose parents were all doctors and nurses, and someone was a head teacher in this son, and she didn't know what to say. Now at the time I was working at Pegasus, teaching dance and doing a bit of work, and she didn't know what to say because she couldn't quite articulate what it was her mum did. All she knew, she came down to the theatre with me and sat down and became part of the furniture. Do you know what I mean? So then I asked her what she wanted me to do, and she said she wanted to, you know, I was having the conversation. I said, what would you like me to do? And she said, be a teacher. I said, okay. So that's what I did. But she don't remember the conversation.
Wow.
She does not remember the conversation. So I'm like, So if I was going to answer that question, although I seem to have answered it now, I would say her anyway, because she shaped that whole journey for me. Even though I taught dance, I never saw myself as making that much of a difference in terms of any sort of journey of education, or, you know, we were talking about the difference between educators and teachers, you know, and I never saw myself as a teacher in that respect. So I didn't see past the dance class when people were like 5, 6 and 7, and then I ended up having to teach another class because those same kids wanted to stay with me. But I didn't see that as my journey as a teacher. And then when she said that, and then I went on, got a degree into my PGC and stuff. When I got into the classroom, I thought, oh my gosh, I like this. I really enjoy it, you know, and it's great. And only when I was thinking about how answering these questions, I thought, actually, I've been teaching my whole life.
Wow.
But I've just been teaching in different ways, different aspects. I remember teaching Saturday school, just doing reading sat on the mat with people, you know. And it's only at that point I realised, my goodness. So, thank you.
Wow.
Really enjoyed this.
Cool. Well, you know, inevitably I'm going to invite you back, so you'll have a chance to answer more questions and dive further into the pursuit of tomorrow. But in terms of this episode, going to bring it to a close. Obviously, I'll see you guys next week, and yeah, thank you for joining.
Bye.